Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that, well, it really shapes our lives, often without us even realizing it. Habits.
hmm
We're going to take a really close look at some incredibly powerful insights from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear
Yeah, great book.
and pull out the absolute core ideas, specifically designed so you can put them into action.
That's right. And to really set the stage for just how powerful these tiny changes can be,
hmm
maybe we should start with James Clear's own story.
Yeah, let's do that.
He wasn't some self-help guru from birth, right?
Mhm.
His journey started with something pretty uh, life-altering, a really bad baseball injury in high school.
Oh, it sounds horrific. The sources are quite graphic. Multiple facial fractures. His
God.
eye pushed out of the socket because of air escaping. He even stopped breathing, was put into a coma. I mean,
Oh.
wheeled out on a stretcher. A nurse literally hand pumping air for him. It was, yeah, severe.
Absolutely brutal. And his recovery was, long, slow,
Yeah.
months of physical therapy just to get basic motor skills back dealing with double vision.
Right.
But the amazing part is he didn't just recover. He used this whole thing to rebuild his life, habit by habit.
Mm.
He went on to become a top athlete in college, got academic honors, and eventually built this massively successful online platform.
Which now reaches millions, yeah. And that platform, it's all about exploring these ideas, habits, human potential.
Right.
And it started with just consistently publishing articles twice a week for years.
Yeah, it's a perfect example, really, a living testament to these principles we're talking about.
It is. And that kind of transformation, through tiny, consistent actions, it's not just him.
No, definitely not. The sources also talk about British cycling. Their incredible turnaround.
Oh, yeah, right. They were like pretty average for decades, weren't they? Kind of a joke almost.
Totally. Then under Dave Brailsford, they focused on this idea of the aggregation of marginal gains.
Which basically means instead of looking for one massive change, they looked for tiny, like 1% improvements just everywhere.
Everywhere. Better nutrition, optimizing training, sure, but also like really small stuff.
Yeah. Like what?
Teaching riders the absolute best way to wash their hands to avoid getting sick.
Seriously?
Yeah. Finding the perfect mattress for recovery sleep.
Yeah.
Even painting the inside of the team truck white
White? Why white?
so they could spot tiny bits of dust that might mess with the bike maintenance.
Wow. That's detailed.
It is.
Yeah.
And the cumulative effect.
Mm.
Just utter domination.
Yeah, the stats are crazy. Over the next decade, what was it? 178 world championships.
56 Olympic golds, 5 Tour de France wins.
All from those tiny, tiny improvements adding up.
Exactly.
So, okay, our mission today in this deep dive is to really understand how these microscopic shifts can create such huge results.
Right. And most importantly, how you can use this approach to build better habits and, get the results you want in your own life.
Let's dive in then.
Okay, so the foundational idea here is the compounding effect of tiny improvements. It's so easy to overlook.
Yeah, we tend to look for the big moments, right? The big wins.
Exactly. We overestimate these huge events, and we totally underestimate the power of just getting a little bit better every single day.
The math he uses is pretty stark, actually.
It is.
If you improve by just 1% each day for a year, you end up nearly 37 times better.
1.01 to the power of 365. Yeah, it's amazing.
But the flip side, if you get 1% worse each day,
Oh,
you decline almost down to 0. 0.99 to the power of 365 is like 0.03. Basically nothing.
habits really are the compound interest of self-improvement.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, in the moment.
Yeah.
In one workout, one healthy meal, writing one page.
Mm-hmm.
It feels tiny, negligible.
Right, like it doesn't matter.
But do that consistently over months, over years. The impact is enormous, for better or worse.
You only really see it when you look back, I guess.
Absolutely. Which leads to this really interesting point, and it explains why so many of us get discouraged and, give up.
Okay.
We sort of expect progress to be linear, right? You put in work, you see results, step by step.
Yeah, that seems logical.
But the reality, especially with habits, is that results are often delayed. It's not linear at all.
Ah, so what is it like?
He calls it the valley of disappointment, or sometimes the plateau of latent potential.
Okay, Valley of Disappointment. I think I've been there.
Huh. Yeah, most of us have. Think about heating an ice cube. You raise the temperature from, say, 25 degrees Fahrenheit to 26, 27, 28.
Nothing happens. Still ice?
Exactly. Keep going. 29, 30, 31. Still nothing visible. Then boom, 32 degrees.
It starts melting.
Right. That 1 degree change, 31 to 32, it looks the same as all the others on the thermometer.
But it unlocks this massive shift.
Precisely. Breakthroughs often come after this long period where it feels like your effort is just wasted.
Like bamboo growing roots underground for years before it shoots up.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
It's all that accumulated potential finally breaking through.
And people give up because they're stuck in that valley, on that plateau. They make changes, they're diligent for weeks, maybe months, don't see the big results they expected, get frustrated, and just stop.
Yeah, they conclude it wasn't working. But maybe if they'd just stuck with it a little longer?
The breakthrough was just around the corner.
Could be.
Okay, so if results are delayed and progress isn't this nice straight line, what does that mean for how we should approach things, how we structure our efforts?
Well, this pushes us to question the conventional wisdom about goals. The source argues pretty strongly that we should focus on systems over goals.
Systems over goals. Okay, explain that difference.
Right. So goals are about the outcome, the result you want to achieve. Run a marathon, lose 10 pounds, get that promotion.
Got it. The destination.
Yeah. Systems, on the other hand, are about the process.
Yeah.
The things you do that lead to those outcomes.
Like your weekly training plan for the marathon, or your daily eating habits, your workflow.
Exactly. And the argument is really compelling. Your results are basically a lagging measure of your system.
A lagging measure. Okay.
Think about a basketball coach. You don't win the championship, the goal, just by wanting it or staring at the scoreboard all game.
No, definitely not.
You win because your team executes a high-quality practice system day in, day out.
Right. Like Bill Walsh said, the score takes care of itself.
Exactly. If you build a great system, the result you want often becomes, well, almost a natural consequence.
So the big takeaway here is maybe stop obsessing over the goals.
And instead, fall in love with building better systems. Because ultimately, you don't rise to the level of your goals.
You fall to the level of your systems. Wow, okay. That shifts the focus, doesn't it? From some future event to what you're doing right now.
It really does.
Yeah.
But then the question becomes, how do you build systems that actually stick?
Yeah.
And the book takes it even deeper here, arguing for what he calls identity-based habits.
Identity-based. This part I found really fascinating. It's not just what you want to achieve, the outcome, or even what you want to do, the process or system, but who you want to become.
Exactly. And that who is critical. Because, as the source points out, behavior that is incongruent with the self will not last.
Okay, say more about that. Incongruent with the self.
Well, if deep down your belief about yourself is, say, I'm not a saver, or I'm just not an organized person, then trying to stick to a budget or keep your desk tidy will feel like a constant uphill battle. It'll feel fake.
Because it doesn't match who you think you are.
Right. It's incredibly hard to change your habits in a lasting way if you don't also address the underlying beliefs, the identity that's driving your current behavior.
There's that great story about Brian Clark trying to stop biting his nails.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
He'd tried using willpower before, right? And it just never stuck.
Nope. Then he did something that seems like totally unrelated. He got a manicure.
A manicure.
Yeah, and getting a manicure wasn't just about, fixing his nails in that moment. It was an action that signaled and reinforced a new identity.
The identity of someone who cares for their nails.
Exactly. Someone who takes pride in their appearance in that way. And suddenly, the old habit of biting felt wrong. It felt incongruent with this new identity he was building.
Ah, so it became easier to stop, not just through fighting the urge, but because it didn't fit anymore.
Precisely. So the idea is every action you take is basically a vote for the type of person you want to become.
I vote. I like that.
Each small habit you perform is like evidence for that new identity.
You don't need to be perfect right away.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
You just need a majority of votes over time.
So each time you say, sit down to write for 15 minutes.
You're casting a vote. I am a writer.
Each time you start a workout, even a short one.
You're voting. I am an athlete, or just I'm someone who prioritizes my health.
These small habits aren't just about the task itself, then. They're teaching you to trust yourself.
Yes. And proving to yourself that you are that kind of person. Changing what you do is the most practical, effective way to change who you are.
That link between action and identity is.
Yeah, that's powerful. Okay, so we get the power of small habits, the importance of systems, the depth of identity. How does our brain actually, build these things we call habits? What's going on in there?
Well, at its most basic level, a habit is just a behavior that You've repeated enough times that it becomes automatic.
Okay, automatic.
Your brain is always trying to be more efficient, right? It learns the best way to solve a problem or get a desired outcome through trial and error. Like Thorndike's cat figuring out how to get out of the puzzle box to get food.
Right, the trial and error.
Initially, when you do something new, it takes a lot of conscious thought, lots of brain activity. You're figuring things out, weighing options.
Makes sense.
But once your brain finds a solution that works, say, you learn that going for a run when you feel stressed actually makes you feel better.
Ah, the reward.
Yeah, the brain learns that pathway. And as the habit becomes more automatic, the brain activity needed to perform, it actually decreases.
It gets easier, much easier. The brain starts tuning into specific cues that predict the outcome, and it creates these little mental shortcuts, these rules. If this happens, the cue, then do the action to get the reward.
Like, if stressed, then run. Or, if home from work, then open video game app.
Exactly. Those choices become almost unconscious, automatic.
Now, some people worry, don't they, that building habits makes life too rigid, maybe boring or robotic.
Yeah, that's a common concern. But the source offers a brilliant counterpoint.
Okay.
Habits don't restrict freedom. They actually create it.
Create freedom. How?
Well, think about it. If you lack good financial habits, aren't you constantly stressed about money? That's not freedom.
Good point, no.
If you lack good health habits, you're limited by low energy or maybe poor health down the line. Again, not freedom.
True.
By making the fundamental parts of your life automatic things like managing your money, exercising, eating reasonably well, you actually free up your mental space and energy.
Ah, so you're not constantly thinking about the basics.
Right. You can then use that freed up capacity for more complex stuff, creative pursuits, spontaneity, whatever you want. You master the fundamentals so you can focus on higher level things.
That's a complete flip in perspective. I like that. Okay, so how do we intentionally build these automatic behaviors? This gets us to the practical framework, right? The 4 laws.
Yes, the 4 laws of behavior change. The source breaks down the habit loop into 4 stages: cue, craving, response, and reward.
Cue, craving, response, reward.
Okay. And for each stage, there's a corresponding law for building a good habit. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. Got it.
And the crucial point is, if any one of these stages is weak or missing, the habit probably won't form or won't stick around for long.
And for breaking bad habits.
You just flip them. You apply the inversion of each law.
Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, unsatisfying.
Exactly. And these laws aren't just made up. They're rooted in psychology, neuroscience. They explain how habits actually work in our brains.
All right, let's tackle them one by one. Law number 1, make it obvious.
Right. So, habits are triggered by cues in our environment. But the tricky thing is, over time, we become kind of blind to them.
Like the candy dish on the counter you mentioned, or your phone buzzing in your pocket?
Yeah, they're just there. We stop consciously noticing them. So the first step is awareness. You need to see the cues. Like Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Whoa! Heavy. But true, probably.
There's that incredible story in the book about the paramedic.
Oh yeah, at the family gathering.
Yeah. She just suddenly noticed something was off about her father-in-law. Couldn't quite say what, but something didn't look right.
And it turned out.
Her brain, trained by seeing thousands of patients, had non-consciously picked up really subtle cues related to heart failure, like his skin color, blood flow patterns.
Wow.
Her awareness, even though it wasn't fully conscious at first, made her urge him to get checked out. And he was apparently at high risk for a heart attack. It might have saved his life.
Just from those subtle, almost invisible cues made obvious by practice.
Exactly. So how do we make cues more obvious for the habits we want to build?
Good question.
One technique mentioned is pointing and calling, like they use on Japanese railways to cut down errors.
Pointing and calling.
Yeah, the train conductors literally point at things like a signal and say out loud what they see and what it means. Signal is green. I confirmed green.
Okay. How does that apply to, like, not eating a cookie?
Well, you could try verbalizing your action and the likely outcome. Like actually say, I am about to pick up this cookie. Eating it will add empty calories that I'm trying to avoid.
Huh. Just saying it out loud makes it more real?
It can, yeah. Makes
Yeah.
the consequence feel a bit more immediate and conscious.
Interesting. What else?
Implementation intentions. This one's really powerful. It just means making a very specific plan for when and where you'll perform a habit.
Not just, I should exercise more, but...
Right. It's, I will behavior at time and location. So I will go to the gym at 6 p.m. on Monday in the main weight room.
Super specific.
And studies show that just having this concrete plan dramatically increases the chances you'll actually follow through compared to just having a vague intention.
It probably makes it easier to say no to other things too because you already have a commitment at that time and place.
Exactly. And building on that is habit stacking.
Okay, habit stacking.
This is where you link a new habit. You want to start with an existing habit that's already established. The old habit becomes the cue for the new one.
Ah, piggybacking.
Sort of, yeah. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit.
Give me an example.
Okay. Instead of just trying to remember to meditate sometime during the day.
Which never happened.
Right. You link it. After I pour my morning coffee, current habit, I will meditate for 60 seconds, new habit.
Okay, I see. Or, after I take off my work shoes, current habit.
I will change into my workout clothes, new habit.
Yeah.
You could build entire routines this way, stacking habits one after another.
Cool. And the last big strategy for making things obvious?
Designing your environment. This one is huge. Your environment is like this invisible hand constantly shaping your behavior. Remember Kurt Lewin? Behavior is a function of the person in their environment.
Right, BFPE.
Exactly. The Massachusetts General Hospital cafeteria study is a classic example.
The one with the drinks.
Yeah. They didn't lecture anyone about healthy choices. They just changed the environment, put bottled water in more places right next to the soda, added water baskets near food stations.
And what happened?
Soda sales plummeted. Water sales shot up. Just because the healthier option was more obvious and convenient, people chose what was easy to see and reach.
Like that fly sticker in the urinals at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam?
Ah, yes. Perfect example. A super obvious visual cue that changed behavior, improved aim in that case, and saved them money on cleaning.
It makes you think about your own space, what cues are around you right now.
Totally. And changing your environment is also why it can sometimes feel easier to break bad habits when you, say, go on vacation or move house.
You escape the old triggers.
Exactly. And conversely, having a stable environment helps good habits stick because the cues stay consistent.
So for breaking bad habits, the inversion is make it invisible.
Yep. Reduce your exposure to the cues, hide the junk food, turn off notifications, delete the distracting apps from your phone's home screen, make the cue harder to see.
Got it. Okay, law number 2, make it attractive.
Right. This taps into the craving stage of the habit loop. Now, you don't necessarily crave the habit itself, like the act of smoking or scrolling social media.
No. What do you crave then?
You crave the feeling or the change in state that the habit delivers.
Ah, like the relief from nicotine withdrawal, or the little hit of novelty from checking your phone.
Exactly. Or the feeling of being connected or entertained or less anxious. It's the anticipated outcome, the change in feeling that drives the craving.
And this is where dopamine comes in, right?
Big time. We used to think dopamine was just about pleasure. But now we know it's much more about anticipation and motivation.
Anticipate?
Yeah. Dopamine levels spike before you get the reward when you're anticipating it. And that dopamine surge increases your motivation to actually take the action to get the reward.
So things that are highly habit-forming, like gambling or endless scrolling.
They often involve these huge dopamine spikes tied to the anticipation of a potential reward. Even if the reward itself isn't always guaranteed or even that great, it keeps you coming back for more.
Okay, so how do we make the anticipation of our good habits more attractive? Give our brains a dopamine hit for the right things.
One cool technique is temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling sounds tempting.
It is. You basically pair an action you need to do with an action you want to do.
Okay, like how?
The book tells the story of Ronan Byrne, an engineering student in Dublin. He liked watching Netflix, but he knew he should exercise more.
A common dilemma.
So he literally hacked his stationary bike and connected it to his laptop. Netflix would only play if he was pedaling at a certain speed.
No way. That's brilliant.
Isn't it? He bundled something he needed to do, exercise, with something he wanted to do, watch Netflix. He could only get the attractive thing, Netflix, by doing the necessary thing, pedaling.
He made the exercise bike the gateway to Netflix. That makes it way more attractive.
Exactly. Another huge factor in attractiveness is social influence. We are deeply social creatures.
Yeah, we care what other people think a lot.
We do. And we tend to imitate the habits of 3 main groups. The close, our family and friends. The many, our tribe or the majority. And the powerful, those with high status or prestige.
The close, the many, the powerful.
Okay, the desire to belong, to fit in, is a really potent motivator. Group norms are incredibly powerful. Sometimes we'd rather be wrong with the crowd than be right all by ourselves.
Sad but true.
So one way to make a desired habit more attractive is to join a culture or group where that behavior is the norm.
Like joining a running club if you want to run, or a book club if you want to read more.
Precisely. If the people around you value that behavior, it becomes more attractive to you because doing it helps you fit in and gain approval, respect, praise, all things we find attractive.
Like the Polgar sisters in chess. Their whole family culture was built around it.
Perfect example. Chess wasn't just something they did. It was part of their identity as a family, making intense study feel normal and desirable.
Okay, so for breaking bad habits, the inversion is make it unattractive. How do you do that?
A lot of it comes down to reframing your mindset, changing how you think about the habit or its consequences.
Like instead of seeing exercise as painful.
Reframe the soreness or effort as signs of progress, of getting stronger, or feeling nervous before a big presentation. Reframe it not as fear, but as excitement, as your body giving you adrenaline to help you focus.
Turning a negative into a positive, basically.
Yeah. Or you can use rituals. Like an athlete might have a specific pregame routine, listening to certain music, doing specific stretches. That ritual isn't just physical prep. It helps them mentally associate those actions with feeling focused, confident, competitive. It makes the ritual itself attractive because it leads to a desirable mental state.
Associating the action with a positive feeling. Okay, makes sense. Law number 3, make it easy.
Right. And this section starts with a really important distinction. Motion versus action.
Motion versus action, okay.
Motion is things like planning, strategizing, learning, reading about what you want to do. It feels productive, like you're making progress.
But you're not actually doing the thing yet.
Exactly. Action is the behavior that actually produces a result. Writing the chapter, making the sales call, doing the push-ups.
And we can get stuck in motion, can't we? Planning forever.
Totally. Voltaire said, the best is the enemy of the good. We get stuck trying to find the perfect plan instead of just starting.
The photography class study is great here.
Oh yeah, tell that one.
Okay, so this professor divided his class into 2 groups. One group, the quantity group, was told they'd be graded purely on the number of photos they submitted. 100 photos got an A, 90 a B, and so on.
Right, volume matters.
The other group, the quality group, only needed to submit 1 single photo, but it had to be nearly perfect to get an A.
Okay, quantity versus quality, what happened?
At the end of the term, all the best photos came from the quantity group.
Really? Why?
Because while the quality group was theorizing about perfection, the quantity group was out there actually taking hundreds of photos. They were experimenting, making mistakes, learning by doing. They got more practice.
Repetition is key. Action beats motion.
Yeah. Repetition is a form of change itself. The book mentions how the brains of London taxi drivers actually change physically.
Their hippocampus, yeah. The part related to spatial memory, it gets bigger because they have to memorize thousands of streets. Repetition literally rewires your brain.
So how do we make repetition easier?
This leads to the law of least effort. It's a fundamental principle of human behavior. We naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work.
We're lazy.
Maybe efficient is a kinder word. But yeah, the more energy or friction an action requires, the less likely we are to do it. Think about scrolling your phone versus, say, writing a report. Which one's easier?
Scrolling, definitely. Almost zero effort.
Right. So the strategy is reduce the friction for your good habits. Make them incredibly convenient. Prime your environment.
Prime the environment? Like how?
It means setting things up in advance to make the future action easier. Oswald Knuckles' idea of resetting the room.
Putting the remote back, folding the blanket.
Yeah, so the room is ready for its intended purpose next time. Or prepping your breakfast ingredients the night before. Laying out your workout clothes before bed. Chopping veggies on Sunday for the week's meals.
You're making it easier to start the good habit when the time comes. Removing obstacles.
Exactly. Reducing friction.
And for bad habits, the inversion. Make it difficult.
Right.
Increase the friction.
Yep. Make the undesirable behavior harder to do. Hide the temptations. Put the beer way in the back of the fridge, not right at the front.
Log out of social media apps so you have to log back in each time.
Delete the apps entirely. Even a little bit of added friction can be enough to derail a bad habit, especially if it's not a deep addiction.
Okay, what about the 2-minute rule? That sounds useful.
It's super powerful for making habits easy to start. The idea is you scale down any new habit you want to build into a version that takes 2 minutes or less.
2 minutes. That's it.
That's it to start. So read for 30 minutes a day,
Yeah.
becomes,
Read one page.
right, or do a 30-minute workout becomes,
My workout clothes.
exactly, or meditate for 20 minutes becomes meditate for 1 minute.
But what's the point of just putting on workout clothes or reading one page?
The point isn't the tiny action itself initially. The point is to master the art of showing up, to make it easy to be consistent.
Because showing up reinforces the identity. I'm the type of person who doesn't miss workouts.
Precisely. You're casting that vote for your identity. Once you've established the habit of showing up, then you can gradually increase the duration or intensity. But the crucial first step is making it easy to start. Doing something is always better than doing nothing.
Avoids that all or nothing thinking.
Exactly. Another strategy is using commitment devices.
Commitment devices, like locking yourself in.
Sort of. It's about making a choice in the present that locks in better behavior in the future, or makes bad behavior harder.
Okay, examples.
Buying food in single-serving packages instead of the giant bag, you'll eat all at once.
Guilty.
Or voluntarily putting yourself on a self-banning list for casinos or online betting sites.
Right, making it impossible or at least very difficult to do the bad habit later.
Yeah. Near Ale using an outlet timer to physically shut off his internet router every night at 10 p.m. So he had to stop working and go to bed.
That's hardcore, but effective, I bet.
The book even mentions the invention of the cash register by James Ritty.
The cash register as a commitment device.
Yeah. Before that, employees could easily pocket cash from the till. The register made transactions visible and accountable. It automated ethical behavior by increasing the friction, making it much harder to steal.
Wow. Okay. And automation is another strategy, right?
Definitely. Using technology or making one-time decisions that lock in future behavior, setting up automatic bill payments or savings transfers.
Getting a good water filter so tasty water is always easily available. Buying blackout curtains for better sleep.
Those are great examples, things that work for you passively once you set them up. The downside, of course, is that technology also makes bad habits super easy.
Like autoplay on Netflix or YouTube, leading to binge watching.
Exactly. It removes all friction. Which is why James Clear's own strategy for social media is interesting.
What does he do?
He has his assistant change his social media passwords every Monday and doesn't tell him the newest.
Seriously?
Yep. So if he wants to log on during the week, he has to email her and ask for the password.
That adds friction.
A lot of friction. Just enough that most of the time he decides it's not worth the hassle, and he gets more important work done instead. He made the default effortless bad habit difficult again.
That's clever. So for bad habits, make it difficult. Increase friction. Use a commitment device.
You got it. And that brings us to the final law, number 4. Make it satisfying.
Okay. The reward part of the loop.
Exactly. And this law hinges on what the book calls the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided.
Immediately. That's the key word, isn't it?
It really is. And this is where we humans run into a bit of a mismatch with modern life.
How so?
Our brains evolved in what's called an immediate return environment. Back in the Paleolithic era, actions had pretty instant consequences. Find berries, eat now, see lion, run now.
Cause and effect were closely linked in time.
Right. But modern society is largely a delayed return environment. You work hard today for a paycheck in 2 weeks. You save money now for retirement decades away. You exercise now for health benefits maybe years down the road. The reward is way off in the future.
Exactly. And we humans have this thing called time inconsistency or present bias. We naturally value the present much, much more than the future.
Instant gratification usually wins.
It often does. So the challenge is, how do you make a habit stick when its main benefits are delayed?
Good question.
The answer is, you need to find a way to make the habit immediately satisfying, even if it's just in a small way. That little hit of immediate satisfaction helps bridge the gap until the long-term rewards kick in.
Feeling successful, even in a small way, right after you do the habit.
Yes, that feeling is crucial for reinforcement. It tells your brain, hey, that was good, let's do it again.
The hand-washing study in Karachi is perfect here.
Oh, absolutely. Tell us about that one.
Okay, so public health workers wanted to improve hand washing in this community in Pakistan where it was really critical for health. People kind of knew they should wash their hands.
But they weren't doing it consistently. Knowledge wasn't enough.
Right, so the intervention wasn't just more education. They introduced Safeguard soap. And what was special about Safeguard?
Unlike the plain soap they usually used, Safeguard lathered up really nicely and had a pleasant fragrance.
So it provided an immediate sensory reward.
Exactly. The simple act of washing became more enjoyable, more satisfying in the moment because of the nice smell and the rich lather.
Did it work?
Amazingly well. Rates of diarrhea and pneumonia among kids dropped significantly, and the most incredible part, 6 years later, something like 95% of households were still maintaining hand washing stations with soap. The habit stuck long after the initial program ended.
Because it felt good while they were doing it. The immediate satisfaction made it sustainable.
It makes change so much easier when it's enjoyable, compared to flossing, maybe.
Good comparison. Brushing your teeth gives you that immediate minty fresh feeling. Flossing, less so. The benefits are more long-term dental health.
So it's often harder to make flossing stick, even though we know it's good for us. The immediate reward isn't as strong.
Exactly. So how can we add immediate satisfaction to habits that don't naturally have it?
Habit tracking is a big one.
Yeah, simple but effective.
Just the act of visually measuring your progress, putting an X on a calendar every day you do your habit.
Or the paperclip strategy, moving a paperclip from a to-do jar to a done jar after each sales call, or each set of push-ups, or each page written.
It gives you clear, immediate evidence that you're making progress.
Right, and that visual proof can be really motivating. Plus, the simple act of marking it off, moving the clip, that can provide its own little dose of satisfaction right then and there.
It also keeps you honest, right? You can't fool yourself if the calendar is blank or the jar is still full.
Very true. But, okay, inevitably, life happens. You're going to miss a day tracking your habit. What then? Is it all ruined?
No. And this is crucial. The rule is never miss twice.
Never miss twice.
Okay, the first missed day is just an anomaly, an accident. It happens. The real danger is the second missed day.
Because that's when it starts to become a new pattern.
Yeah.
A habit of not doing it.
Exactly. Missing one workout isn't a big deal in the long run. Missing 2 in a row, that's the start of a negative spiral. So if you slip up, the absolute priority is to get back on track with the very next opportunity.
Don't let one missed day turn into 2 or 3 or a week.
Right. And focus on just showing up again, even if you can only do the 2-minute version. Do 5 minutes at the gym, write 1 sentence, meditate for 60 seconds.
Just don't break the chain twice. Keep reinforcing that identity. I'm someone who gets back on track.
Exactly. Avoid that all or nothing mindset where one slip up makes you feel like a failure and you just give up completely.
Good advice. Now, a quick word of caution about tracking and measurement. Goodhart's law.
Ah, yes. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
Meaning,
don't get so obsessed with hitting the number you're tracking that you lose sight of the actual purpose behind the habit.
like focusing only on working long hours, the measure, instead of doing meaningful work, the purpose.
Or obsessing over hitting 10,000 steps, even if you're just pacing frantically indoors, instead of focusing on overall health.
Or teachers teaching only to the test, sacrificing real learning.
Right. The measurement should guide you, help you, keep you aware. But don't let optimizing the number become the only goal, especially if it undermines the reason you started the habit in the first place. And don't undervalue important things just because they're harder to quantify.
Good point. Measurement is a tool, not the ultimate objective.
Okay, so for bad habits, the inversion. Make it immediately unsatisfying.
Yep. Attach an immediate cost or punishment to the behavior you want to stop.
The book uses that vivid hypothetical. What if, to use the nuclear codes, the president had to endure a small but immediate electric shock?
Huh? Yeah, that certainly makes the point. That immediate, unpleasant consequence would be a powerful deterrent. Pain is a very effective teacher.
And the more immediate, tangible, and certain the consequence, the more influence it has on our behavior.
Right. We're much more likely to avoid something with a small, certain, immediate downside than something with a huge, uncertain, far-off downside.
So how do we apply this practically without electrocuting ourselves?
A habit contract is a good strategy.
A habit contract, like a real contract?
Can be. It's basically a verbal or written agreement, usually with one or more accountability partners. Could be friends, family, a coach.
Okay, and what's in the contract?
You state the habit you're trying to stick to or avoid, and you clearly define a punishment that will occur immediately if you fail.
A punishment? Like what?
The book gives the example of Brian Harris, who wanted to lose weight. He made a contract with his wife and his personal trainer.
Okay.
It specified his daily habits, logging his food, weighing himself, and if he failed on any given day, there were pre-agreed punishments.
Such as?
Like having to dress up in a full shirt and tie every single workday and Sunday for the following week.
Yeah.
Or if he failed the weigh-in, having to pay his trainer $200.
Ouch. That's motivating.
Exactly. It automates the punishment. It makes the cost of slipping up immediate, concrete, and unpleasant. It makes the bad habit or skipping the good habit immediately unsatisfying.
So you're basically pre-committing to a negative consequence.
Right. It leverages our aversion to immediate costs.
Okay, so those are the 4 laws. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. And they're inversions for breaking bad habits. That's a really solid framework.
It is. But applying these is one thing. What about sustaining progress for the long haul, beyond the initial burst of motivation?
Yeah, long-term success. What else does the source say about that?
Well, one really critical factor is choosing the right habits in the first place, playing a game that actually favors your strengths.
Ah, so it's not just about effort, but about picking the right playing field.
Exactly. Your genes do play a role here, not in determining your destiny, but they definitely predispose you towards certain personality traits.
Like the big 5. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion.
Right. Agreeableness, neuroticism, and also towards certain natural talents or abilities. Genes kind of clarify what you might find easier or more inherently satisfying to work hard on.
Like Michael Phelps' body being just built for swimming, or Hijam El Garouge's build being perfect for middle-distance running.
Exactly. You want to find the game where your natural inclinations are an advantage. And if you can't find one that fits perfectly, maybe you can create one, combine your unique skills in a way that gives you an edge.
That involves some exploration, right? Trying different things to see what clicks.
For sure. That's the explore-exploit trade-off.
Mm.
You need to spend some time exploring to find where your strengths lie, and then exploit that niche with focused, consistent effort using these habit principles.
Okay, find the right game. What about staying motivated when things get, well, boring? Which they inevitably do.
Yes. Boredom, the great killer of habits. This is where the Goldilocks rule comes in.
Goldilocks. Not too hard, not too easy.
Exactly. You want to be working on tasks that are of just manageable difficulty, right on the edge of your current abilities.
Challenging enough to be interesting, but not so hard that you get totally overwhelmed and give up.
Precisely. That zone, that sweet spot, is where peak motivation often lies. You feel engaged, you're making progress, you're learning.
And the biggest threat to long-term success isn't necessarily failure.
It's boredom. It's losing that engagement. This is often what separates professionals from amateurs.
How so?
Professionals stick to the schedule. They show up and do the work, put in the reps, even when they don't feel like it, even when it's tedious or boring. They understand it's part of the process.
Amateurs tend to let life get in the way, or they only practice when they feel inspired.
Right. They get derailed by boredom or inconvenience. Sticking with it, even when it's not exciting, is crucial.
So habits provide the foundation of consistency. But is that enough for, like, true mastery, elite performance?
Good question. The source argues that habits are necessary, but not sufficient for reaching the highest levels.
Okay, what else is needed?
You need to combine those automatic habits with deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice. Meaning
Actively pushing yourself, seeking out weaknesses, getting feedback, and constantly finding your skills. Habits make the fundamentals automatic, which frees up your mental energy.
to then focus on those harder, more challenging aspects of improvement.
Exactly. Mastery isn't just doing the same habit over and over. It's about layering improvements on top of that solid automatic foundation, using your established skills as a base to tackle new challenges.
Continual refinement.
Yes. And one more practice that really helps with that refinement is reflection and review.
Taking time to actually look back at what you've been doing.
Yeah. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Regularly reviewing your process and your results makes you aware of mistakes you might be making unconsciously.
Things you wouldn't notice if you're just grinding away day after day.
Right. It helps you identify areas where you could improve. Pat Riley's career best effort program with the Lakers back in the 80s is a great example.
What did he do?
He had players track key stats, not just from that season, but going back to their high school days, and compare them year over year. This intense focus on reviewing performance and finding marginal gains helped them win championships.
And top athletes today, like Eliud Kipchoge, the marathoner, or Katie Ledecky, the swimmer.
They keep meticulous training logs. They're constantly reviewing, analyzing, looking for those tiny edges. Reflection is key to sustained improvement.
So it all kind of comes full circle, doesn't it? The 4 laws guide the process.
Right. Awareness comes first. You have to make the cue obvious. That leads to desire, the craving. When you assign meaning to the cue, make it attractive. That desire initiates the action, the response make it easy. And then the pleasure or satisfaction from the reward makes you want to repeat it, make it satisfying.
Feeling motivated gets you to act.
And feeling successful gets you to repeat. It's this continuous loop of building, performing, refining, and sustaining over time.
Wow. What a journey through these ideas. It really hammers home how understanding these subtle mechanics of habits
And focusing on building effective systems, not just chasing big goals.
can unlock so much potential. It's quite amazing.
It really reinforces that huge differences in outcomes often come down to the cumulative effect of these tiny atomic changes done consistently.
Day after day, sometimes in ways you wouldn't even expect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as you've finished listening today and go about your day, maybe here's a final thought to carry with you.
Okay.
Think about just one habit. Maybe one you want to build or one you want to break. Just one.
Got one in mind.
Okay. Now, looking at those 4 laws, make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, or their inversions.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of those feels like the most important lever for you to pull for that specific habit right now?
Where's the bottleneck, maybe? Or
Yeah.
the biggest opportunity?
Yeah. What's one tiny tweak based on just one of those laws that you can make to that habit today? Something to make it just a little bit more obvious,
Mm-hmm.
or more attractive,
Okay.
or easier, or more immediately satisfying.
Just one small thing.
Start small, make that one tiny tweak, see what happens.
Great final thought. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We really hope these insights help you start building the atomic habits that will compound into the results and maybe even the life that you want.